right, thank you all. That was so much fun. So thank you to Chris and the Nationals Youth Baseball Academy. The youth panel and activity break was the perfect precursor to our next roundtable. And now it's time for the council to discuss how we can create more opportunities for kids to share the great experiences that we've just heard about. And to moderate this conversation, we have my Deputy Executive Director and very good friend, Shannon Feaster.
All right, thank you, Holly. And good morning again, council members. That was so much fun. Another round of applause for the youth in the room. So now we're going to get down to a little bit of business. The purpose of this roundtable is to collect your input and insights on the development of the National Youth Sports Strategy. So a very important charge that we've been given. This council represents a diverse array of backgrounds, experience, and expertise. As you've heard from each other, and as you share your thoughts during this roundtable, I ask that each of you consider not only how to get more kids in the game, but who we need to engage to make this partnership and this strategy a success, okay? So we're going to focus on some core themes. We've heard a lot from Mariano, or Mario, yeah. You've been called Mario a few times, and Herschel. But we do want to hear a bit more from the rest of our council members during this session. The core themes we will focus on are expanding access and increasing resources, safe places to play, training and recruiting quality coaches and volunteers, including mentors, building real relationships with youth and families, protecting the safety of youth, and communicating the impact and benefits of youth sports participation. So to lead us off, I will ask Ashley the following question. What are your thoughts on how we can begin to address the significant challenges that many children face playing in their communities?
I think it's a great lead-in after having the youth up here, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but one of the things that they talked about that we all somehow lose between being a youth and being an adult is this idea of an attitude of inclusive, like wanting everyone to be involved and being inclusive no matter your gender, your race, your ability level, and somehow we lose that as we get closer to adults and it becomes more uncomfortable. So it was really good to hear the kids talk about that whether a child has a disability or they're able-bodied or whatever makes them different and unique, children embrace that, and we should help them embrace that as well. And like I mentioned earlier, I was 16 when my accident happened, and I was really unaware of a lot of the boundaries and the barriers that people with disabilities face when it comes to staying active. And so I'm really looking forward to the council moving forward to kind of get rid of this historical segregation of children that have disabilities or that are able-bodied. For the longest time, we kind of put kids with disabilities in their own little group over here, and that's not what the kids want, and it's not what's good for the kids either. We need to include them with all the able-bodied kids and keep that inclusivity really at the main front of what we're talking about. And so really looking forward to having that attitude as we move forward to make sure that all kids, no matter what their ability levels, are included all together with their peers, and that's just better for everyone all around. But also at the same time, some sports lend themselves to being very easily adapted while others don't. And so being open to being very creative. I live in Wyoming, and so people ask me all the time, how do you get around in your wheelchair in Wyoming? And you have to be really creative and sometimes use a lot of duct tape, but we get it done. And it's really interesting to me that people have lost that sense of creativity. They just assume that because someone is different, we can't really help them, or we don't have enough funding or the right teachers or the right adaptive equipment. You really just have to be creative, and the kids will help you with that. And they will say, just like they showed us up on the table today, we want to be involved, we want our peers to be involved no matter what's going on in their lives. And so listening to those kids is really important, being creative is really important, knowing that it doesn't always take a bunch of money to get things done, but you have to be open and you have to have that attitude of being inclusive. And so really excited to see what the council can come up with ideas for that specifically, but knowing that moving forward we are going to have that attitude of being inclusive is really encouraging to me.
Thank you. Linda?
Just to continue a little bit on what, But I had that on. I apologize. I'm back. Continue what Ashley was talking about in terms of inclusivity. I think it's really important, not only on your ability level, but also make access for youth sports, no matter what socioeconomic background you come from. So obviously, the focus that we're also participating or taking on is in underprivileged communities, so that kids know no matter where they come from, or quite frankly, how much funding they have, that it's available to them at either low or no cost. And I think that spreading the word and activating volunteers at the community level that can also then bring in local businesses to fund these initiatives is what I'm excited to get involved in. And when you think about it in particular, I am really, really blown away by the young lady at the end of the stage there. For someone who's in 5th grade to talk about the importance of getting involved and how it affected her self-esteem, and the other young ladies talked about the importance, particularly as they enter adolescence, that girls' fitness is accessible to them throughout their careers, through high school and college is really, really important as they mature, as body image becomes more and more important, and self-esteem really gets them, or potentially can get them, on their way as they go through their life. So excited to get to work.
Great, thank you. Now let's talk about safe places to play. Not everyone has the opportunity to play in safe facilities, or oftentimes the access to those facilities are limited or non-existent. So if anyone has thoughts, other than the couple of folks that I'm going to call on who may or may not be expecting it, Nan in particular, about how we can, as a council, really help to level the playing field in that regard.
Well, Shannon, I want to thank you and Holly for introducing us to, or certainly it was new to me, of course we've seen so many of them this morning, but the Youth Baseball Academy that's sponsored by the Washington Nationals in wards 7 and 8 of Washington, D.C., here in D.C. And when we toured the academy yesterday, our tour leader pointed out that one of the needs that they sought to fulfill was, in fact, to provide fields and facilities for these kids so that they had a place to go. Of course, this is a place that's all-encompassing, and I think that's a wonderful model. But what I see the council is doing, we have incredible champions and role models here who can shine a spotlight on the importance of high visibility entities like the Nats, like, professional sports teams across the country who can help to mobilize resources. Many of them are based in urban areas. I think a lot of this, meeting this challenge has to do with raising awareness, and we are perfectly positioned with the leaders we have here to raise awareness, to help create those coalitions. Linda, just what you were talking about in terms of coalitions with volunteers. The Youth Baseball Academy, I think, provides a great model that we could use to help propagate this idea. They have community partners, they go into the schools. Certainly across our communities, we all know of places where there are facilities that can be repurposed. As Mariana pointed out, we have schools, God willing, in every community that have gymnasiums, that do have fields. Can we help to increase access through community action, through zoning, through local ordinances, or facilitating from the logistical level at the community on a community basis? So I think we've got a great opportunity here as a council to help promote and propagate that kind of model, and to mobilize support with the folks we have here who are high visibility leaders.
Thank you. Natalie?
Thing that we need to do, and it's identifying those places. That facility we went to yesterday was incredible, and it would be wonderful to have a facility like that in every city and community, but that's not realistic. And it would be great if the NFL and Major League Baseball would help us make one of those facilities in every one of those cities. But there are so many gymnasiums in elementary schools and public schools that are available that we can identify and we can encourage and hopefully be able to open up to kids and have a safe place so the parents feel confident when the kids are there and have a safe place for the kids to go there. Obviously, with the Boys and Girls Clubs and the girl that was up there, you heard her story and the impact that that had on her. But from my experience with after-school programs, a challenge with those is transportation, too. It's getting the kids from the elementary school, the junior school, high school, even to the facility. So being able to even work with transportation to be able to get the kids from the school to the facility. Because if some of these places, I know for sure when I grew up, there wasn't a Boys and Girls Club near me or an after-school program near me, and my parents couldn't take me, how was I going to get there? And so being able to bridge that gap and just piggyback everything that you said so eloquently.
Does anyone else have a comment on that? Sure, Brenda.
I was just going to add, because we're looking for safe places, there's barriers in many ways, but you look at corporate America and they have walking trails and jogging trails and gyms and lots of property surrounding the campus, and I think we should look at partnering with corporate America to see if it's a possibility in some of those communities, not all, that might be able to use those facilities to provide a safe environment for those children and youth.
And I've always thought that safe place was schools, and I think with kids being active, getting them out at different schools, and I think you mentioned it and I think Natalie, we were talking about earlier, you know, I like what Selena said about the Boys and Girls Club, and some people can't get to the places, but opening up through different corporations in their city or their town to open up little spots where the kids could get to there, where they don't have to go to the big Boys and Girls Club, that they may have little sites that kids can go and feel safe, because safe is a very tough word. And when you say safe, we're talking safe for kids to be able to be active, be able to be someone you have to oversee, someone that can oversee that you trust, that's going to have a kid that the parents got to trust, that they got to become the leader of that kid. And I think that's what a safe place is, someone that takes the authority to direct that kid as a mentor, as a leader.
That's a great opportunity to segue into the following question. How do we recruit, train, and retain and support quality coaches and mentors who are going to be responsible for the care, safety, education of our youth? Sure.
So listening to the athletes and students up there, it's how important the coach's role is, as well as parents. And I believe we need to build a holistic culture for coaching and mentoring. It's not just about the competitive sports. It's about making it fun and making it about the academics and about a number of things by being active. And when you look back, when I used to be in sports, most coaches were paid, or they were the teachers being asked after school to make a little extra money. Would they coach basketball team, whether they knew anything about it or not? But now it's really volunteers, which means our best recruits are our parents. But I think what happens, when I went to coach, I played basketball, but I didn't really know much about coaching, so it was a bit intimidating. And so we need to find ways to help train parents to be coaches and mentors to our, not only their own children, but to the youth that they're hopefully going to coach. And again, I'll bring up corporate America. We do learning development for our employees. And I just said, as I got involved in this, I went to my trainers and said, couldn't we do for our employees and parents that want to be coaches a training class? So I'm trying to think outside the box of how do we give people the tools to feel confident and to do it in the right way. And so those are a few ideas that I think we're going to explore as a committee here.
I feel that you got to train the parents first to train the kid. We as adults got to train ourselves to get a kid to be active or get a kid. You got to train the adults as first, that they can trickle down to the kid, because if a kid, you train the kid and he goes home and sees something different, it's going to be sort of conflicting to him. So we have to train ourselves as adults, as responsible adults first, and then I think it trickled down to the kid to be trained as a responsible coach, because a coach or a mentor, and we continue to talk about the youth academy, and I know that's a very expensive undertaking to do in a lot of different cities, but I was amazed that a lot of college kids was there as mentors. And I'm not sure if they were there because of a punishment they had to do or an assignment they had to do, or whether it was just something that they loved doing. And I think that was what made it that every kid there looked up to those mentors or those coaches as a leader, like someone with authority. And I think that's what we have to find, is people that have that type of love for what they're doing.
Sure.
I think it's, as Herschel said, it's important to train the coaches or the parents, because, I mean, I have an issue when my kids were playing baseball and the coach teaching something, I was trying to help him. And this is how powerful the coaches are, because he told me that I didn't know much about baseball, but my coach knew better than me. So that's why it's so important for us to teach and coaches to teach parents to be a coach, or whoever coach is taking that role, because it's important, because it will affect the ways of our kids, the way they're taught, the way they think, and the way they see the game.
Bob, I'd like to hear from you on this as well.
I think they did such a great job. I don't have anything to add to that one.
Okay. Jim, anything?
The only thing I would add to that, and I think recruitment is the key, because everything else is after the fact. If you, again, expand on the mentoring, you've got a lot of kids that are either in there still playing at the early college age, or kids that have maybe played in high school that still have a love for the game that aren't. They would be a place that I would clearly look to get people involved. Certainly volunteer parents, though that's where a lot of training has to come in after the fact for sure, particularly if they're coaching their own kids. You want to make sure they understand the mission of why they're there. And the last thing I think is an untapped resource is seniors. I mean, you're talking about a lot of people that, you know, have the free time, the ability to get involved, and if you could recruit people that have that, still that love for the sport, love for the game, and get them involved, it would be a win-win for both parties, kids and seniors. So I think that the recruitment aspect is really important.
Great, thank you. That's also a nice segue into the next set of questions, which have to do with how to build real relationships with youth and families where trusted partnerships are established. So, Rob, if you could speak to that a little bit.
So I think one of the keys to building that type of relationship is the talking with your children, because not every child wants to be a hardcore athlete. Some kids just want to be active. So, for example, my wife was a professional athlete. I played basketball throughout my military career. So our son grew up with sports in his life. But we also want to make sure he's having fun, and it's joy, and he's having lots of joy, because he's missing play dates also. He's missing birthday parties and other things because he has to attend practice. He has to do all these things that being an athlete requires. So we have to make sure that this is it's communicated that if you're good playing, we're happy for you. But if you want to do things other than sports, if you want to go hang out with your friends, that's okay too. So I think so many kids, the kids up here, for example, today, they mentioned having fun and diversity and joy and being a part of a family and a team. So that's the way I think we build this. Sometimes we make things so complicated. We're looking at stats and data and all these other things. Maybe we need to talk to the kids and say, how do you think you want to participate in this level of activity? How do you want to be a part of this team? They're going to be superstars and they're going to be the last player, but they all participate as a team. And when that championship trophy comes to the team, they all get it. And it's a pretty lasting memory. I recently had my son's football team won the championship, and one of the fathers said, "This is my proudest sports achievement, my son." Touching for me, because I know how tough it is for some families. So I think let's not put too much pressure on them. Let's make it fun, let's make it joyful, and let's be the role models that they all need. Thank you.
Well put. Getting more kids to play sports clearly can impact their health in positive ways. However, along with recruiting and training qualified coaches, mentors, volunteers in general, who can teach the fundamentals of a particular sport, there are some serious safety concerns that we need to consider. What are your thoughts on how the development of the strategy should address the safety of youth athletes? And I'll look to Jim.
Well, first, I started with a statistic here. 3.5 million kids a year under the age of 14 are treated for sports injuries annually. So clearly it's a problem. Part of that problem, and the reason these things occur, is a lot of kids under the age of 12 specialize in specifically one sport that puts a lot of strain on them physically. So that's something we have to educate people to realize that, and I'm sure Herschel can attest to this. I mean, he probably did a whole lot of things when he was a kid, and so did Mariana. You just don't want, if you're throwing a baseball every day and not trying other things, they've found that that's something that doesn't help them over time. Something that indirectly affects safety is cost of participating, because when you have to pay for fees, then the equipment becomes something that isn't as easily be able to be purchased. So, you know, when fees are out of line, and Rob and I talked about that yesterday, he had a friend that has a couple kids that are in travel leagues that it's $400 a pop, and you know, then you turn around and you got to buy cleats and things like that. There's only so much money to go around. Things like safe playing fields, proper equipment, correctly fitted equipment is important, proper hydration, nutrition. There's so many things that go into safety. Qualified coaches who understand training and coaching techniques, which is big, because if you get a coach that's, you know, trying to work you out or something, or teaching you the wrong things, Robert can attest to that. That's like the worst thing in the world. Things that are such as the rules of the game. The rules are designed to keep you safe. So if you're back in the day, they used to teach me to lead with my helmet when I would tackle. Well, that's taboo these days. You don't do that anymore. You got to know the rules of the game, and they're there to protect the individuals. Look at the NFL, what they're doing now. Respect for the game. That starts with the parents and the coaches. I mean, you talk about safety. I mean, how many times have we heard there's brouhahas at the end of a game over a kid's 9-year-old Little League game? I mean, that's not the thing you want to teach a kid, and certainly that's not a safe environment. Inclusivity and value of each athlete, regardless of skill level. I think a couple of the kids talked about that earlier. That's where bullying gets involved. So, I mean, inclusivity starts with the parents, goes right down to the kids. If they learn that Johnny, who's maybe not the best player in the team, is just as important as someone else, that stops the bullying, and that creates a safe environment. So I know I went down the laundry list, but it was important, I think, that topic.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to address it more from the medical end. I mean, hydration, as Jim mentioned, is very important. And heat stroke, there's a lot of things that can go when the kid goes into electrolyte imbalance. In the old days, I'm sure Herschel will attest to the old salt pills that they used to give us before the games. So sometimes the coaches, they put the kid in a catabolic phase where they just overtrain the kids. And now you're setting them up for head injury, and that's a real risk. And the way we used to play football, remember the leather helmets we used to wear, and now they have the fancier helmets, but kids are still getting the head injury, and it's a repetitive injury that is cumulative over time. The bullying that Jim mentioned also, that's a biggie, because if you have one kid on the field that's doing some really dangerous things, you have to catch that, and you have to correct that behavior so it's not mimicked by the other kids, because real injuries occur when kids get out of control and there isn't an oversight in terms of what's going on. Joint protection is also very important, because sometimes kids, to show off, they'll do some really crazy maneuvers, and you got to protect their joints. By the same purpose, weight training is very important, and is part of, and resistance training is part of all gyms. In the old days, they said, don't lift weights, you're going to enlarge your heart, and you're going to be muscle bound. We know that weight training is a basic part of all training. But when you put a young kid in a gym with weights, they use too much weight. Now you're predisposing them to growth plate injury. So you have to be very careful about that as well. Faulty gym equipment that was mentioned as well. And so it's really an oversight of prevention, to prevent the injuries, to set up protocols. You see a kid doing a crazy maneuver, sometimes kids will even try and do backflips. They're going to fall on their neck, they're going to end up a quadriplegic. These are these really basic things that if you set down protocol and you have a series of protocols, everything from hydration, equipment, how it's used, dangerous maneuvers, prevention of bullying, all of these things combined together, as well as, is there glass on the field? Are there holes on the field? These are things that can cause career-ending injuries with an anterior cruciate being pulled out, or one thing that will end a kid's career. So by setting these protocols in place, I think we can really make an enormous difference, and they're not difficult to do. It's a really simple series of protocols to follow.
I also believe that one of the problems that we're facing now with youth and children playing, especially baseball, is because, sometimes the parents want to live their life through the children. And they push these kids to the limits to say, oh, you're capable to do this, you're the best, you do that, because they wanted to achieve something that they can never achieve. The kids will have abilities. Yes, they're talented. Yes, but sometimes they push into the limit that at 11, 12 years old, we're seeing these boys, especially pitchers, getting Tommy John surgery. And we have to take action to teach the parents to allow the kids to enjoy. See, one thing that we play the sport is also to enjoy the sport. Enjoy what we do. Have fun what we do. Even in the professional level, the point that we often emphasize was have fun. Yes, we have to compete and we have to compete to win, but have fun doing it. And these kids are missing the fun part, and they're just trying to compete to hurt someone else, trying to compete to beat the best thing and push kids down. Yes, there are kids that they're not function, or they're not that able to play at the level that the others are, but they're still playing. Why I want to put that kid down? And that issue comes from home, and we don't emphasize it, and we don't working towards that. We need to start working towards that, making parents aware of what they're doing. Because sometimes what we're creating is a monster instead of players.
That brings us to positive skills development. So the opportunity for coaches and parents and mentors, all volunteers who are in a child's life around youth sports participation, just making sure that there is that protection of their emotional health and that uplifting for the self-confidence to be built. And I look to Rob because he shared a story with the team not too long ago, and I'd like to have him sort of expound on that a little bit relative. Well, it was one of your coaching stories, but with your son that I know you mentioned a little bit here today, but how important it is for coaches in general to kind of have that level of training.
I think it's really important for the coaches to be a person that the children look up to because they spend so much time with them. Like, your coach is an important factor in your life. You're playing this sport, you want to please the coach, you want to please your parent, and most important, the kid should be having fun. So when you have a coach who is so demanding and just discouraging the kid, I've heard so many kids say, I'm giving up sports, or I gave up sports as a youth because my coach was horrible. That's not good for our sports program. It's not good for our country, for the health and wellness of it. But you want to have an encouraging coach, a coach who understands that every kid has different needs. Some kids need pat on the back. Some kids need quiet, personalized attention. But you want to reinforce positivity. They're not professionals. They're not Herschel. They're not Mariano. They are little kids trying to interact with their friends and have a great experience. Maybe the next Natalie is out there, but maybe not. Maybe the next person out there just wants to do well and be a part of this team and be a part of the community. So I think anything that we can do to help promote positive coaching, positive experiences on the field, those kids take those lessons and they take them to the business world, they take them to their community. I think the kids are more impactful because they have confidence, they have self-respect, they have self-esteem. And many of them, they learned it as a point guard on the team, leading the challenge against another team, saying, I can take that challenge. I can take that second shot, make it and have confidence. Well, they take that confidence to the classroom. Now they're faced with tough science or math problems, but they learned how to say, I can do it. I can work hard, I can study, just like practicing. You practice your free throws, you practice doing your math, you practice your science. So coaches are so important. Many people, I've heard pro athletes say, they look back to their middle school and high school coaches as the person who's been the most impactful to them. So I think for all you coaches out there, thank you for what you do, but just remember to try to be as positive as you can because you're affecting a young man or woman's life. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to comment on that, Natalie?
Yeah, I'll say, I just want to just commend you on talking about that because being a professional athlete, as you know, and being around other professional athletes, there's always a reputation that the best coaches or the best athletes are just pushed to the max, and that the best coaches are the toughest coach, the one that breaks you down, the one that makes you so mad that you get more out of yourself. And from the best athletes that I've been around, they have coaches that believed in them, and that when they couldn't believe in themselves, that encouraged them. And there is a benefit to having a coach that believes the best in you. And I think that if we can continue to encourage that message, and you just can't always think that the best coaches are the coaches that are the toughest, or the ones that made you run that extra mile, or made you do those extra this or extra this, where you experienced pain and became unsafe. But what I've been able to see from being around so many incredible athletes in my time in sports, and luckily all the athletes play golf, but the best athletes they've had were the ones that believed in them, that had that positive message. And if those athletes are having coaches like that, and we can encourage parents to coach their children like that. I mean, I was really fortunate. I had parents that believed in me and that were incredibly positive, because it's tough being an athlete. You're not always positive, and to have that positive role model in your life, if we can encourage the parents to be that for those kids, I think that, they will get more kids playing in sports, and more kids playing sports for longer and wanting to keep sports fun too.
One area we have not touched upon in terms of the safety of youth athletes is the protection against abuse, not just emotional abuse, but physical and sexual abuse. Any comments or thoughts about that and how to perhaps address that in our strategy?
When you start looking at, when I went through coaching, you had to do background checks and training, as well as fingerprinting and the whole bit, to bring awareness to the fact that you can't just come in here and not have a set of standards for what's expected. So I think we do need, and I think it's starting to come around, and you're seeing it more and more, but we probably need some national, guidelines for, if you're going to coach, here's what's expected, here's, I don't know quite how you do that. I'm sure there's people that do know, probably people in the room here that would know how to do that. So, but I think it's really, really important that we bring awareness to that, and then have some standards and expectations if you are going to be a coach and around youth.
Other thoughts?
I feel that as well, that's the reason why we give our kids, give them the inspiration and also the motivation to speak out. I think that's one of the main points is, and when they speak out, we have to listen. And I think that's been some of the biggest problems in sports today, is we've had certain people that speak out, but no one heard them. And so you have this coach or this leader, so-called leader, continue to be in the game, and I think we give them the opportunity to speak out, but we listen to them when they speak. And I think that's very important.
Any other comments on that topic? Okay, I'll turn to Linda first for this question. How can we best communicate the value and benefits of exposing all children to sporting opportunities?
Well, especially with all the discussion that we've had today and everything that we're learning about the disturbing statistics about the decline in youth fitness, it's declining with young boys, it's worse with young girls, and it's even worse when you look in underprivileged communities. And we talk about the impact that technology is having on those declines, because kids are sitting in their homes or their friends' houses playing video games, or just endless hours on social media that has effects on their self-esteem and just keeps them so sedentary. So this is where I actually think technology, and we've talked about it, can actually be our friend and a tool to help spread the mission of this council, but also to educate the communities at large, the benefits and the impact that youth fitness has on lifelong health outcomes, lifelong relationship outcomes, and lifelong professional outcomes. So if we're able to make those key partnerships that we've all talked about in the community, technology platforms can actually help recruit both coaching and corporate partners to accelerate and mobilize the communities to offer access to youth fitness, that it is accessible, that everyone can have the opportunity, if we can create and educate those to get involved and contribute on the national level. So.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, I think media plays a large role in really moving this forward. I mean, there's an adage that people talk about, which is if they can see it, they can be it. You heard one of the panelists up there talk about a line from a movie 25 years ago, League of Their Own, you know, no crying in baseball, right? So media has the ability to inspire or not, and I think our job is to try to work with media to inspire young people, young girls, boys, whatever ability, ethnicity, to do great things, and media is not doing that right now, in my view. Kids see 4,000 media impressions a day. So if we can focus on those media impressions to actually inspire kids to get outside and to do things, I think that's where we'll really have power. If you look at all the major companies in the world, especially in the U.S., many of them have really strong initiatives around health and wellness, and they're really leaning into that. So the ability of this council to bring those companies together, to use those resources for good, and to try to figure out ways to really drive awareness and inspire kids to do things, get off their phones and get out and really be active. So I think media should be a really big focus of ours, not only in making sure that the impressions that our kids are getting are positive, but also working with these companies to really harness the resources to make sure that the good works and the good content is being out there and inspiring kids to be active.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, to activating big companies and marketers in this country with their media power is, certainly part of the strategy that we craft. But in addition to spreading this message, those companies all participate in an organization called the Ad Council, which can activate through donated media across the country. And if there isn't a more worthy cause than getting kids up, out, and active, and be able to keep them or prevent them from getting into trouble, it's a worthy cause that we should really investigate as well.
Yeah, and if you look at today's generation, kids care about companies that care about them. It's a much bigger focus than it was when we were growing up. So that's really important for us to understand and really deal with. And if, again, you look at companies like, or initiatives like Play 60 or NBA Cares, there's a lot of really great initiatives out there that I think we can work with, companies like yours, Linda, that do a great job on this in supporting sports. There's plenty of resources there. It's really just about harnessing them, putting together, and pointing them all in one direction.
I think it's critical to target since the age group we're talking about, who do they look up to? Who are their role models? I mean, who would get that message across? And I think if we're going to do a media campaign of any sort, we have to find those people that they identify with, because they're not going to listen to their parents or someone who's, maybe older. And I don't know who those are. My kids are 26 and 7 years old, so I have no idea what this age group is looking for. But whoever they are, they're the ones we should target to see, because, as you said, Linda, this is an important thing for everybody. So I'm sure we can find people out there that could be spokespeople at a lower level at that age group that we're talking about.
I think you're right, and I think it's actually an attainable thing, because if you looked at the spectacular kids on the stage and you think about it, and it is, if you can see her or see him, you can be her or him. So the influencers that they look up to or are inspired by today are actually people who look like them and people who come from their own communities. So I think it's an easier task, and with the technology capabilities through social media today, that we could, an opportunity could be achieved if we put our heads together and get through it, because they want to see people who look and feel like them and come from communities that are right next door to their own.
I think that comes from opening up sports, as Mariano said early on, is letting kids. I think today the biggest problem you have with kids in sports is today, if you're a football player, your whole year is football. You play no other sports. If you're a golfer, your whole year is golfer, baseball. But kids are not doing anything else, whereas when I was younger, I did so many different sports. And I think that's one thing that we have to focus on now as adults, is giving kids an opportunity to do many different things. Maybe I could have been a great golfer if I had the chance to play golf. Maybe, probably not. But anyway, but what
we all think you did okay, Herschel. You did all right.
I might have been a great football player if I would have just focused on football.
But what I'm saying is getting kids able to do a variety of different things. We as parents and as adults cannot, I see kids go to a basketball camp and they take all the good kids and put them over in this corner. They take all the kids that less and put them over here, but you have to mix kids. You never know that one kid that you've said that's not going to be the NBA star grows up being the NBA star. And I think that's one thing as responsible coaches, mentors, adults, is we got to quit categorizing what kid is who. And I think that's going to make the big change in putting who's going to be for the young kid. And I think the way we do that is just by getting a kid active, getting them moving, getting them off the couch, doing something, because then that kid will find out where you want to be and not put it back in the hands of the parents. Because, I would have loved for my son to play football. But I would say today, I'm so proud of him for what he did. I'm glad he didn't play football, because he's done so well in what he's done, and it's been on his accord, and that's what I'm happy to see. So I think that's what we have to do as adults and as mentors and coaches, is not just put this on the kids. Just say, go out and have fun. First of all, go have fun, and then let him figure out where he want to be at today.
We have a little extra time, so I'm going to ad-lib here for a second. If you have ever coached a youth sport or multiple youth sports, raise your hand.
What about ran a camp?
If you have ever run a football camp.
No, a fitness camp.
A fitness camp, a mixed martial arts camp, raise your hand. So does anyone want to share the experience as a coach? Perhaps not coaching your own child, but other children, and maybe what you learned about them and about yourself.
What I learned really was the biggest challenge was working with other adult parents that were coaches of the other teams. We would have a recreational league that would, say in baseball, that would lead to a travel team. Well, the recreational league became more competitive than the travel team. And, the idea behind that was to give everybody an opportunity to play and to try to convince, and get this, my kids were in a league that only had 4 teams that were aged 10 through 12. So, it wasn't like this big league. And you would have thought that winning that little 4-league team league was like the World Series, and the people took it way too serious. And you would just try to emphasize, I'm as competitive as anybody, but that wasn't the place, that wasn't the right format to be competitive. So the biggest issue was really the other parents, quite frankly. And very few people, I think, shared the same mindset of that this was all about all inclusivity and fun and getting all the kids to have a great time. And I look at the statistic I cited earlier, when at the age of 13 you lose or maybe I didn't cite it earlier, I was going to, you lose 70% of the kids after the age of 13. Well, there's a reason for that, and I think it's just not fun. And the parents are the reason why it's not fun, because kids are predisposed to have fun. They like to have fun. It's the parents that make it not fun. And that's my thoughts.
One of the things I found real effective when I was training for the Olympic Games, when I coached wrestling, I would get on the mat with the kids, because I remember that's how I learned the best, because I had my coach as my mentor. So when I would be the teacher and the mentor for the kids and actually get on the mat with them, I could teach them so much better and make them feel like we were together as a team, like a family. And I think one of the sports that really is the epitome of that is martial arts. Because in martial arts, you teach your art. Teaching and passing down your art to the next generation is core. You find yourself by losing yourself in the service of others. And so I think we need to take that martial arts mindset and move that more into other sports, because sometimes in other sports we covet the knowledge we have. You know, if we you know, we are even in boxing or in football, we have a certain technique we kind of hold off. We don't want to, or baseball, you know, how to throw that spitball or something so they don't catch you. But yet in martial arts, even though they have the East Coast hates the West Coast, the Wing Chun guys don't like the Shotokan guys, there still is this basic thought process of taking this art and teaching it to others, so everyone becomes a teacher, everyone's a mentor. And so that way you make them feel like they are you. You are all one family because you're all part of, and we even call each other brother in that field. We don't call each other Joe or Charlie or Sally or Susan. We call each other brother, whether it's a male or a female, because there is that passing down of the art. And I think if you make the kid feel like he is part of a family, he is part of a fraternity, part of you, I think you'll be most effective.
I think you're 100% correct. And, you know, I spoke that, you know, like when I did a fitness camp, I said I want to call it fitness because I don't want to do football. If I did a football camp, the young ladies would have never came to the camp. Well, my thing is it's not about, and I think you said it earlier, it's not about you, it's not about the adults, it's about the kid. And I had so many kids that come up and they were so excited just to be a part. So it's not the kid that is sitting on the couch, it's the parents not motivating the kid to get off the couch. And I think that's what we have to do, is motivate the kid to get off the couch, because kids want to be active. They want to have fun. But in today's world, remember, we've created so much technology that we have to compete against that. So how can they have fun when they can go play whatever the games they play on television or on the computer? So you have to give them an incentive to get off the couch, to go out and play. And that was one thing, if I can tell this short little story, and I feel guilty on myself. My mom and dad worked extremely hard when I was little. They worked extremely hard. Well, my brothers and sisters are very athletic. Well, when we were outside playing after school, my parents would come home from work, they'd go outside, and no matter what we was doing, they would go out and play with us. No matter what we were doing, they'd go out and play with us. Well, my mother's going to be turning 80 in November. Well, 4 years ago, you know, when you come to my mom's house now, it's like being at the Olympics. All my brothers and sisters are very athletic. My nephews and nieces are very athletic. So you better be in shape. So we were getting a basketball game together. And this is 4 years ago. And my mom was sitting over there, and she said, I like to play. And I'm like, I'm not going to pick my mom because, you know, she can't post no one up. She's terrible. You know, so I didn't pick her. I didn't pick her to play at 76. I didn't pick her because I wanted to win. You know, I was so into winning. But I forgot what was most important, that when my mom was younger and when I was younger, she took the time to go play with me. And as I got older, I got involved in wanting to win, sort of like as a parent, we get involved that we did it. We want our kid to do it. So we forget about the essence of what getting a kid active is all about. And I said, that's what we have to do here is, remember, it's not about you. It's about getting the kid out, doing something, and we have to make it fun for them. And like I used to always talk about this jungle gym. Guys, you know, the TV show today is American Ninja. Well, everything they're doing on American Ninja, they did it on the jungle gym. So I'm saying kids, they see that, they're going to do it. So that's what getting a kid acting, letting them have fun, quit putting our emphasis on the kid, and then he's talking about it or getting involved with him. Or if he's not your kid, he is your kid. Because that kid may not have a mom, may not have a dad, but he's still your responsibility. And I say he's your responsibility because we don't want to lose him into something worse. And that's what I say I think we have to do in doing this. And that's why I'm excited to be a part of you guys, because at the very first meeting, I saw the energy you guys have, and I went, wow, this is going to be fun. And so I'm excited to be a part of this.
Thank you for sharing that story. Any other youth sports coaches around the table who want to share?
To share, just to echo what you just said. So I was coaching my daughter's basketball team, and my dad flew in for a weekend to go see me coach and his granddaughter play, and we lost. And I'm really competitive. Probably everybody around this table is. And I was just bummed. You know, I'm going out to the car. A couple of the girls wanted to ride home, so I said, sure, jump in the car. Huh? No, no, I took them. And the girls got out, and I'm talking. My dad looks at me and goes, what were the girls talking about in the back seat? I stopped for a minute. He goes, they weren't talking about the game. You care about it more than they do. So to your point that we've got to make it about the kids, they didn't care. I cared way more than they did. And so it kind of changed me after that about trying to make it more fun and participatory. And it's a lesson we all have to really think it's not about us. So I learned it the hard way.
Remember, there's professional golfers, baseball player, basketball player, hockey player, football player. But when you talk about getting active, that's got nothing to do with sports. It's got to do with just getting the kids active, getting them involved, getting them moving. And you can call it sports, but everyone is not going to be a professional baseball player. And professional baseball players are very unique people. Professional golfers are very unique people. So they're very unique. So the majority are the people which make this country a great country. And I said, you talked about the military, and you made a statement, and that is true. Most of our young men and women today are not in the condition right now to go and be qualified to be ready for the military. Well, it is our responsibility because we're the greatest country in the world. So is it not our responsibility of all of us to continue to help our young people to be in those conditions so we can say that we're proud of everyone? Sorry, I talked too much.
No, you don't. That's fantastic. Anyone else on this?
Just had one caveat, one funny caveat. When I was in high school, I was training with my wrestling coach, and I dislocated a shoulder. So guess who had to become the coach? So literally, I sort of became a coach by default because I was team captain. So sometimes you're kind of thrown into it, but due to an odd circumstance. But really, if you care about the athletes and you make it fun and friendly, you can really make a difference. And we all remember that, even though it was that many years ago. All the guys in the room when the incident happened, they said, "Now it's your fault. Now you got to be the coach."
I was just going to say something that's common of what everyone's saying, that has either been a coach or has been involved in helping other people be active. It's what you get out of it, because it's amazing. You think you're going there to like help these kids and they end up blessing you in such a way and teaching you such amazing lessons. And I think when it comes to getting quality coaches and volunteers and things like that, we need to put that message out there. Instead of this list of what all you have to do, this is what you're going to get out of this. And if you think about professional athletes and anyone that's been successful in their life, they always go back to that one person that touched their life and that one person that really motivated them. And a lot of times that was a coach or someone that just took an interest in their life. And so we need to put that message out there. This is what you're going to get out of it when you sign up to volunteer and help these kids, and the blessings that you get out of it far outweigh any responsibility that you'll have and that you'll have to put into it as well.
Okay, any burning last thoughts? Broadly opening up the floor. Topics related, though, please.
You know, we haven't really touched on how we're going to get more involvement from kids. And, you know, there's some tried and true things that people have done. Certainly schools are one vehicle, which if you get kids involved early in sports and bring back physical education and some of the things that have been cut from the budget in a lot of school districts. But Schools would be one thing, community events, but one that's near and dear to my heart, which is the public-private relationship. Just in my industry, there's 38,000 health clubs. If you were able to convince those clubs to open up their doors to youth of a certain age group for free, actually, I do that. We also, at my particular club, provide a financial assistance plan so that no one's left behind, so that if they cannot afford it, they are scholarshiped. If we can work with the private sector to find ways. I know the YMCA, and they give all 7th grade students a free membership to a certain number in each one of their facilities. Why the private sector isn't able to do that, I don't know, but that's something that we should kind of pursue. I do have a little bit of an in there. That would be a great opportunity to get more people involved, as well as provide programming for kids that are younger. Some facilities do, some don't, but each one of them have fitness facilities that you could turn around and say a certain age group could learn how to train properly, how to get exercise, and that could create a lifelong habit if you turned around and gave a kid a year membership. So, I mean, there's ways to, and that's just one example, but the private-public partnership is really, I think, key to lean on, corporate America to say, look, this is something that will pay off for you in the long run, because healthcare costs are strangling companies. And if we can reduce those healthcare costs from them, this is the way to do it. And one other, I'm big on statistics, but for $1 upfront in preventative, so in an exercise program or a nutrition program, there's a $4 savings on the back end. Any businessman would do that deal every day of the week. Let me give $1 to get $4 back. I'll do that. Give me as many dollars as I can do it. So it's a great investment for these companies to do that, because that's their future workforce. So.
Great point.
If we're really doing like random comments at the very end, I've got one.
Related.
Totally unrelated, but no, it's related. And Herschel brought it up about playgrounds. You think about if we want kids to be active and get them involved in sports, if we're really going to start from the very, very beginning, you look at your playground systems. How many playground systems out there are not all-inclusive? And so I challenge everyone and everyone out here that's listening today, look up the term all-inclusive playground. You'll be blown away by the opportunities that are available to get kids started at such a young age, no matter their ability level. And I mean, you start kids getting active, like you said, the American Ninja, that's the kids look up to that and things like that, starts on the playground way back when they're toddlers. And so, like I said, just challenge everybody to check those out, and maybe something the council could be involved with as well.
And another funny story, and this is, I tell you about getting a kid active. When my son was little, he was around 6, we were at a playground, and there was this wall that we had to climb over, and I climbed up on top of the wall, and Christian, my son, he was down at the bottom. He wouldn't go over the wall, and I was telling him to come up, and then I remember, like I said, "Guy, I never taught you to climb a tree. I never taught my kid to climb a tree, and you may not know how important this is, but just listen for a moment." What was interesting, so I went back down the wall, and I started helping him to climb up the wall, and some other kids came over, so I started helping them to go up this wall, and all the parents started coming over because they got nervous. And I said, "Oh, no. I said, it's okay. If they break an arm, it'll get healed, and they'll be all right." Well, anyway, what I was getting to is sometimes some of the most basic things that we learn, because climbing a tree is almost like doing chin-ups. You're doing different things, and I said some of the most basic things we do is very, very important. And listening, and that was a statistic that I read a long time ago. Not sure if it's true, and I'm not sure if I should mention this, but a mother that follow a toddler around a day runs a marathon. And well, if you do everything a young kid do a day, they do a marathon. And I said, guys, some of the basic things we do that we don't think is exercise can become exercise. So that's what I challenge all of us is, guys, we get active, kids get active, and then I think that's what changes things. But we first got to do it, and I think, like you said, this social media world, we can get active with using that. One of the things I said, is we put out things of like, let's challenge every kid on a Saturday. We're going to do push-ups and sit-ups. The most boring thing, but as long as they see someone else doing it, let's challenge every kid in America. You got to do 20 with me. We're going to do it. And if they send something in, I'm gonna send you something back. I don't care if I have to write it out on a sheet of paper. I'll write 1,000,000 autograph. You know, we're gonna do 1,000,000 to say, yeah. I'm saying if they're gonna do it, I'm willing to do whatever to get a kid active. So let's challenge you to do. I see all these other challenges. Let's challenge you to exercise. Show me what you can do. Yeah, they did all that. Why we can't get kids challenges like you mentioned opening up health club. Hey, let's open it up. Let's get a minute we can in there. Let's do sit-ups and push-ups. Let's do it all over. And then getting a kid active, getting to do one thing, because that one thing may lead into something else. And that's why I say you got to get them started at one, and it may lead into something else. And like I said earlier, when Christian was small, if you're going to do anything on your iPad or your cell phone, for every 30 minutes of cell phone use is 30 minutes of exercise. So at the time, he said, start using his phone. He didn't use his phone anymore because he got tired of exercising. So I was like, okay, dude. So that's what I think we have to do.
I want to add a little bit of this, but I'm going to go to a different subject. There is part of this consult. We talk about sport and fitness, but also we need to talk about nutrition. Why is that important? Because, man, if you're hungry, you ain't going to do no sport. You ain't going to have no kids running and playing and doing all that stuff. You know, kids, as we speak, kids are, if they have breakfast, they will not have dinner. You know, and yes, how you going to motivate that kid to do any kind of sport if the tummy is empty? You know, and also we need to worry about that stuff. You know, our kids getting overweight at early ages. What we have to do to take care of that matter, because it's big and it's increasing. So we need to do something about that stuff, and we need to also talk about that, because I think that that's the reason why kids don't feel good about it, because they overweight and they don't want to expose themselves on the fields because they will be mad. They will be made fun of them, and they rather be home eating junk than being in sport or being outside because someone's going to criticize them because they feel like that. And that's self-esteem. And we have to work on that. You know, because we have to make these boys or girls to the level of their self-esteem that they need to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. But nutrition needs to take a big role on what we're doing.
Thank you for mentioning that. Trevor Drinkwater, do you have anything to add there? I love saying your last name.
Yeah, there you go, right?
Talked hydration a bit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Mariano was saying. I think nutrition is a big thing. They talked about shortening or lengthening the school year because a lot of kids only get nourished when they're at school, you know, in the summertime. So, you know, what are we doing in the summer when kids have, you know, don't have that support? I think is something for us to really focus on. But nutrition is a huge deal. Knowing what our kids are eating is really important to understand the impact of that. I also think mental health is a huge initiative here. I don't think you can have physical health without mental health, and that's an area that I think we all need to focus on and try to figure out how to deal with that. A lot of the conversation today was about self-esteem and bullying and all those types of things that drives inactivation. So I think those are areas that we really need to work on and look at. And I agree with what Jim was saying earlier that there are a lot of resources out there, and I know I've said it a couple times, but there are a lot of resources in the private community to be focused at these initiatives and companies that are very interested in doing that. And I think a big role of our job is to try to figure out how to harness those resources. I mean, it'd be great if all of those health clubs one day just opened them up to anybody to come in. You know, one day a year was just every health club in the country was open. So there are things like that I think can help motivate. But again, I think it's nutrition. I love the comment you're making about it's about activity, not about being an athlete. And I think a focus on self-esteem and mental health is really important for us to think about.
I also think that we have to encourage others, though, to be sport ambassadors and fitness ambassadors. I mean, our council is one thing, and we have limited resources and limited time, but for all of you out there, for example, my wife, Amy, she calls our neighbors and says, do you want to go for a walk today? So I think by taking your social media, for your Facebook page, challenging your friends to go out and exercise, and post pictures of your friends doing exercise, because we have powerful voices ourselves. We all can reach people all around the world through one social media push out. So we can't expect the media to help us with everything in corporate America. We have to be ambassadors of fitness in many different ways, and encouraging our friends and colleagues to do things at our jobs, in our communities, to do things will be very, very impactful and make positive community relations, make the kids see that their parents are out there and the kids get together and they're happy that their moms and dads are out there. So we can do a lot of things going into the basic route. Calling your neighbor, let's go for a walk today. Let's go snowboarding or something like that. But there's lots of power in doing it the basic, simple way of the way we used to do it as young kids,
Has everyone gotten everything out that they wanted to get out? Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. Please, a round of applause, because we do have an audience here today, for the council members for sharing. And I will invite Ms. Holli Richmond back up.
All right, so thank you, council members, for all of your contributions during the roundtable. I think that we've identified some great next steps, and I'm looking forward to diving in deeper in the coming months as we continue to develop our approach to a much-needed national youth sports strategy. So next, I'd like to introduce someone who will be another essential member of our team, Clay Walker, the newly selected executive director of the National Fitness Foundation. The foundation is the only congressionally chartered nonprofit focused on health and fitness, and is the official charitable organization of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. So welcome to the team, Clay.
Thank you, Holly. As Holly mentioned, I'm brand new. This is week 8. Over the last 8 weeks, I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with Holly, spent a lot of time with Admiral Giroir. We also met with Ivanka, and I became really excited about this opportunity. It's a big challenge. It's a really big challenge that we all face here. But sitting here today with this council group and seeing the commitment and seeing like real talk about purpose, not just talking, but to put it to action, gets me even more excited. So thank you all for your service, and trust me, I will call upon you when we're out hitting the road. So let me just do a couple of things. I'm going to share just a tiny bit of information about my background, personal and professional, and then I'm going to end with what the foundation is here for, as Holly said, its purpose. So youth sports have been part of my life for more than 40 years. I've been a participant, I've been a coach, I've been an athletic director, I've been an administrator, I've been a board member, and yes, I've been a parent, sometimes much to the chagrin of my 2 kids. Our 18-year-old this past year, he was in his baccalaureate. They announced the only kids, the 5 kids at his school, the Landon School, that ended up having lettered as seniors in 3 sports. 3 sports as a senior. He was the only one that lettered in 4 sports as a senior. That's how important that is to our family. Our 15-year-old, who goes to Our Lady of Good Counsel, she qualified for the Penn Relays as a freshman this year. She plays soccer, she plays lacrosse, and she does track. So it's a part of our family. So this is near and dear, just as it is to everyone here. It's near and dear to our family. Professionally, the very first job I had was with the NFL Players Association, and believe it or not, our very first spokesperson that we ever had was sitting here today, Herschel Walker. Why did we choose Herschel? Because you cannot find someone who is more authentic, who is more passionate, and more real. Herschel isn't doing this for name recognition. He is doing this because he cares. And so kudos to Holly and the administration for selecting Herschel and all of you. It's really obvious that you care. Hearing ideas, I heard Nan talk about facilities. What a great idea. Green lighting facilities. Well, guess what? We've already begun having conversations with universities. Think about all those facilities. Jim, you mentioned health clubs. We've already begun having conversations. How do we green light those? How do we get more people involved? And believe it or not, when we have started to ask, universities have said yes. We want to participate. We want to be involved. So you're hitting on these highlights, and that just shows me that there is purpose coming out of this group. So again, I'm happy to be part of this. I've had the opportunity to work in college athletics, professional athletics, high school athletics. This, though, for me, is really the most exciting opportunity I have had because we can make a difference. Prior to this, people have talked about it, and what is different about what Holli is doing is there is an action plan behind this. There is a national youth strategy. This has never been done. What you are embarking upon has not been done. Let me say that one more time. This has never been done. This is our Teddy Roosevelt moment. This is the chance for us, this group, the people that are listening, to stand up and to say, this is such an important issue that we're going to create an endowment dedicated to youth sports. We're going to fund programs. We're going to make sure that kids have access. That does not happen with government alone. So the foundation, the purpose of the foundation is to support you, is to support youth initiatives. It cannot be done unless there are private-public partnerships. So the foundation was chartered nearly 10 years ago to raise money like any other foundation. So our job is to raise awareness, to support you, but it's really to raise the funds. That is what is different, and that's why I'm so excited because of the leadership of Holli, the leadership of Admiral Gerard and Ivanka that are committed, and your commitment. We're happy to be part of this and to be supporting it financially. So I will call on you. Remember, this has never been done, but you will be the first to ever get it done. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Clay. We appreciate your leadership as the Foundation's new executive director and very much so look forward to exploring more opportunities to make real and impactful progress to getting more youth participating in sports. We know that the Foundation will be a very vital piece to our puzzle. And now it's time to conclude today's session. I want to take this opportunity to thank each of you, council members, for your dedication and support to the mission. It takes a team like ours to create positive change, and together we are making significant strides to give our youth the opportunities that they deserve. And I think that we can all agree that today was a productive meeting. It was exciting to discuss potential strategies to help us fulfill our mission, and it's very obvious that our team is looking forward to the journey ahead. So this is just a kickoff for us, and the game is just getting started. And I'm confident that with your collective support and guidance, we will score some big wins for America's youth. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and for joining us via webcast. We appreciate your support. Be sure to continue be sure to follow us on Twitter @FitnessGov to stay updated on all of our activities, and this meeting is adjourned. We ask that our guests please hold in your seats while we dismiss the council members, and our volunteers will escort you back to the lobby shortly, and thank you again for joining us today.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services at taxpayer expense.